And welcome back to another episode of Tales from the Man Cave. I'm your host, Travis, and with me tonight is my good friend and co host, Mr. Jonathan Fitch. Now, he and I go way back, about 14 years now?
Yeah. I guess that would be, when did you start? That was 2000, what, 3? 2?
Nah, I think it was 4, wasn't it?
2004. Okay, yeah, jeez.
So, yeah, it's been a minute.
Yeah. Yes. Yay for the time.
We've
Ugh.
just gotten older and uglier, right?
That's it. That's it. And I've lost more hair, but
Hey, it happens to the best of us, man. I'm starting to lose it too.
Yeah. But everybody pointed it out to me like I don't know, some 15 years ago. Fitch, dude, the back of your head is starting to show. I'm like, no.
I'm feeling the same way because nobody actually pointed it out to me. I saw it in a picture, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm losing my hair. You know?
It's so funny. I used to have this really long, ridiculous hair. I mean, just stupid. And of course, back in the day, it was just, my hair was super wavy, super curly and whatnot. And seriously, it grew out like Dee Dee Verney. Do you know who Dee Dee Verney is?
I have.
He's the bass player for Overkill.
Okay, yes.
He since has, he's shaved it short. So, but that was around like 2000 when he did that. But prior to that, yeah, that hair, the wavy, God, it was awful. Just terrible. And I look back on it and I'm like, dude, my head looked like that. Just terrible.
Okay, so not only were you a big scary monster in a haunted house, you're also a musician as well. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I've been playing drums now since I was able to hold sticks in my hands.
So that's back when dinosaurs roamed the earth, right?
Yes. I was, but man was being introduced. Like the Flintstones were just, the idea of the Flintstones was happening. So,
so
of course that would have been the 50s.
So we're going to go right into some of the top albums that has inspired you to make you want to play.
Okay. Well, I have to give some honorable mentions.
Okay.
Before I go into the 5, because over the past 43 years,
oh, wow,
there's been always.
No. I'm just kidding.
Always been. Thanks. Really, what started me even being interested in drums in the first place was, the Monkees when I was 3, 4. Because that was still, even though at that point they were reruns, but still they were, they were still pretty relevant in 1976, 77. And so what had happened is I was just leaving and I was like, okay, these guys are musicians and look at the drums. That sounds pretty cool. But then as it just went on and on and on, there's been just, thousands of musicians, bands, whatever, that have at some point impacted my life. So, but honorable mentions, of course, would be Pantera, specifically Cowboys from Hell, and actually the 2 albums after that. There was, if you notice, there's a gradual step in heaviness per album up until Reinventing the Steel, because Reinventing the Steel, I felt, was where you could tell that there was like a major rift going on between the band members. I had no idea during Great Southern Trendkill that they were that separated back then, but you could tell by Reinventing the Steel. Anyway, so the first 3 albums that Pantera made were really influential. Primus was one. Primus was really influential. Faith No More, bands like that. Especially, actually, Van Halen's 1984 and 5150, those albums were really influential as well for me. Alex Van Halen's a fantastic drummer. I mean,
you got to give him
you'd
props,
have to
yeah.
be living under a rock and not at least appreciate, Hopper Teacher,
Mm-hmm.
the beginning to that. But number 5, I was kind of fighting with this a little bit. But number 5 has to go to Stryper's "To Hell with the Devil."
Oh,
Now,
okay.
Let me explain why.
Okay.
At the time, I was listening to, Kiss, Bon Jovi, Motley Crue, and those Def Leppard, all those sort of bands. And so there was that feeling being there. And actually, at the time, really the heaviest band that I was listening to was, I guess, would be Motley Crue at that time.
Mm-hmm.
It just, I thought that was, that was the big thing, and I was like, like She's Got Looks to Kill. I mean, that, to me, that was like an extremely heavy riff. I listened to that song like on repeat, like hundreds of times. But when Stryper got introduced to me, I was like, holy crap. And, and I look at the picture and I look at all these Bible verses and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, okay, well, all right, I'll bite. So, and I listen, and when you hear that first album, or not the first album, when the first track called Abyss,
Yes.
It's an intro, that keyboard intro, has that, sound of thunder in the background, and then all of a sudden the song just jumps up and kicks you straight in the teeth, and it was incredible. It just shook through me, and then I watched them play it, and how hard those guys went off on stage was incredible. I mean,
Michael
you can
Sweet,
say whatever you want.
Yeah.
You can say whatever you want about the glam and the cheesed hair and all that kind of stuff. Those cats were great players.
Mm-hmm.
Great players.
They still are.
Yeah, absolutely.
They have a couple of new albums out.
Oh yeah, I've been following them. Once I started listening to them, I never really put them down until there was that little point in time where they kind of went on a hiatus after around 1991, 92. And then they came back around 2002, 2001, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But Michael Sweet always was doing his solo stuff. Fun fact, I actually was being taught, I was taking drum lessons for about 6 months from Michael Sweet's drummer, not Robert Sweet.
Okay.
But
that's pretty cool.
But I can't, for the life of me, I can't remember the dude's name. Many years. But anyway, so that album just had so many different variations. I mean, yeah, the main beat, of course, was just this doom tat, yeah, but it was real simple and all that. But seeing how hard Robert Sweet played was actually the first inkling for me to start really getting into what I was doing and hitting harder. True, it wasn't helping, my budget very much because of the fact that I was going through, cymbals and sticks and heads, like there was nothing. Because I had, at the time when I first started listening to Stryper, I had this red Sparkle Ludwig drum set that was like, it was a 4-piece. Snare, mounted tom, floor tom, bass drum, one cymbal, and one hi-hat, And I thought that was like the big thing. Well, I tore that son of a gun down, just tore it down because of Stryper, because I started hitting harder. Number 4. This was really difficult because of the fact of how many, like I've said before, how many things have been influential to me. But on this one, I'm probably going to have to go with Testament's The Gathering. Now, The Gathering is actually my favorite album by Testament. hands down. It's their, I guess it's still kind of quote unquote newer, because if you think of classic Testament, you're thinking of The Legacy, New Order, Practice What You Preach, Soul of the Black, and then even some tracks from The Ritual were like, that's classic Testament. That's where it was the core band of, Alex Skolnick on guitar, Eric Peterson, Chuck Billy, Louis Pimente, Greg Christian. Those guys were all through all of those albums. Then after The Ritual, they went through a bunch of lineup changes, and the main one that they replaced was Alex Skolnick. He was the lead guitar player. I mean, fantastic. I'm sure.
Oh
you know
yeah,
who
he is. Yeah.
Well, they replaced him with James Murphy, and James Murphy again is just an incredible drummer. But that album Low that he was on, fantastic. But he was also on The Gathering, James Murphy, and they had a bass player, Steve DiGiorgio. In my opinion, one of the best bassists that there are out there. Period. He's shared. I mean, he's kind of a hired hand, even though he has like his core band. His main band is called Sadus, and extremely fast. More of the high pitch, scream thrash style. Is what it basically is. But they toured around with Testament. But anyway, the Gathering just had, like, it has actually Testament's fastest, most brutal song ever recorded, called the Legions of the Dead. And by this time that came out in '99. I'd already, had a lot of great songs that I'd, gotten endurance from, but that one just blew me away when I first heard it. So it still stands as, one of my most favorite albums. I mean, I still play it like constantly. Number 3, you might be surprised about this, but number 3 is actually going to go to Slipknot.
Oh, okay.
And the reason being is because of Joey Jordison's style. He had the funk metal side. If you heard Made, Feet, Killed, Repeat, the technical first Slipknot album.
I've not heard that one.
You can look it up on, it's on YouTube and all that, and I'll just warn you ahead of time, it's not as good at all. It's with a different singer. Corey Taylor didn't come in until a little bit later. But the music of it is kind of crazy because it's more of a funky. It does have heavy stuff in it, but it's still kind of a funk related album. Even though they dropped a lot of that feeling, they actually incorporated more hip hop and whatnot in certain parts in that first album. And just the way, because I've been listening to Korn, I loved Korn, they were like, I was like, hell yeah, these guys are great, not very complex.
Yeah.
Not very complex or anything, but still, the emotions there.
They were heavy as hell, though.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And they were able to take the whole, take rap and put it together with it and actually, give you something to hang your hat on, And then after that came Limp Bizkit, and I don't care what anybody says, I still like certain songs and certain albums from Limp Bizkit.
I was jamming Significant Other the other day at work, so yeah, you're not alone.
Yeah, it's just a great. They're lately like they've got like this one called Gold Cobra, and it's just meh. But but anyway, those guys were all making that certain sound. So the first time I heard Slipknot, I literally got there. I was looking in a magazine, Metal Maniacs, I think it was, and there was a big fold out that showed the 9 of them with it didn't say Slipknot. it just, I mean, it showed the symbol, but hell, you didn't know what the hell that was back then. It just saw these 9 weird people in masks and red jumpsuits, and it said, "Come play Dying" on the top, and then showed the date that it was coming out. And I was like, okay, again, I'll bite, you know? So I went to the record store, and I actually, rhythm section, and I bought the first album on cassette, actually. Because I had this, I was like, well, I'm not gonna risk spending, you know, $15 for a CD if I'm gonna hate it, you know, since it was such a, you know, kind of a random thought process. But the the cassette that I bought, you know, it doesn't have, you know, the extra bonus track to it. But man, when I put that thing in and started playing, I was floored. I went, okay, they're doing the rap thing, they're doing the thrash thing, and doing the death metal thing all in one. I was like, this is fantastic. I mean, you can't deny that. And it, again, that, and then Iowa, jeez.
If you're a 555, I'm a 666.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That dude, that album, I really, really challenged myself listening to that album, not just for that double bass part in the Heretic Anthem, but for the song as a whole, for Disaster Piece, because it had so many different playing styles in it. I mean, in just one song. And when I finally learned how to play that, like front to back, and I stopped and I just played that whole song. You know, it was like, I considered that a huge milestone. But anyway, that's Iowa. Number 2 is the Justice album. Back in when I first heard that, I mean, I was just coming out. I was in my Stryper phase, and you know, and I was actually in this really hardcore Christian phase at that time as well, which, you know, I attributed mostly to Stryper, and I was trying to avoid, you know, because I saw T-shirts and stuff going around for Metallica and Slayer and Judas Priest, but I never wanted to delve into that, you know, because I was like, oh, I'm going to be corrupted, and you know, I don't know. But so I avoided listening or to any of those things. Hold on. Okay. Anyway, so I avoided it until one day I was staying over at my grandparents' house, and the top 20 video countdown was on back when MTV actually was playing video.
Actually played music.
Yeah. And every Sunday they do the top 20 video countdown. And I remember specifically that number 2 was Eternal Flame by the Bangles. And it was so funny to watch the DJ. I wish I could have taped it too, but I wish I had. But the look on the guy's face, the DJ's face, when he's like, and that was Eternal Flame by the Bangles. And now, for the second week in a row, here is Metallica was 1. And he just had this somber look on his face. Like, I can't believe that this made it. You know? So I sat there and I watched that video. And when that video ended, I couldn't tell what had just happened. Like, all my senses had been assaulted, and it's the story behind the video and the lyrics and the way they played and the machine gun. I mean, it was at that
jaw dropping.
It was at that point that I really kind of abandoned the whole glam scene and went directly into the thrash scene. I mean, that's what started it right there. And that's where I learned how to do the fast double bass, the more complex, like, drum beats. rather than your standard pop. So, the Justice album is how I, broke in not just into that style of music, but into Metallica, obviously, went backwards, got right, or Garage Days Revisited, and Master Puppets, and Ride the Lightning, and Kill 'Em All. I actually wasn't a fan, and still am not really a big fan of Kill 'Em All. Haven't been. It's one of in my opinion, one of the albums I don't like the sonicism, if you can, for lack of a better term. The sonicness, sound, the production value is just, I don't like it. It's not thick enough. Yes, it's raw and all that, but even some of the other bands that were coming out with first albums around that time were sounding thicker and more intense, Slayer, Anthrax. But I just feel like there was a lot lost in the Kill 'Em All album. I think that if it had been produced differently, like the next 3 albums with Fleming Rasmussen, it would have been scary. I mean, it would have been a scary record. Because Ride the Lightning was only a year later, and Ride the Lightning Fight Fire with Fire literally just blows you completely up, like it's gone. and then the epic at the end, Call of Cthulhu, is just I couldn't. Of course, by that time I had already heard Justice and the Master of Puppets album, so I was kind of expecting it. But like with the Justice album, that was the first time I'd ever heard an epic like that had lyrics like "To Live Is to Die." That was the first time I'd ever heard anything like that. And especially with the different moods that song can invoke. Of course, it's very depressing, and that whole album is just depressing.
You can do it your own way if it's done just how I say it. That's depressing. Yeah.
Freedom of choice is, or freedom of speech is word that they will brand, all that. It was the death of the American dream. It was the death of the earth. It was everybody dies in that, all except for that one guy that got his arms blown up and his face blown off and all that kind of stuff. And he can't die. He's the only one that lives through the whole thing. Everybody else dies, including themselves. Dyer's Eve, So that was a huge turning point for me. Now, the most influential album of all time for me is Kiss Alive.
Oh, good call.
Yes.
I've got that on vinyl.
Kiss Alive. I had it on vinyl.
It's a beautiful thing, isn't it?
Yes, it is. That recording, people have fought over, well, it's a studio recording, it's live sounds piped in. I don't necessarily believe that, because there are clues to that, especially with how great it sounded. But it just, to that point, it just doesn't matter. Even if it doesn't matter. It was a fantastic recording. And
you wanted the best, you got the best.
Yeah, it was intense. It was such look at the songs that they did. Like on Dress to Kill, Come On and Love Me, so calm and so chill. It's got the little, acoustic guitar going on in the background. She's a dancer, a romance, just a really chill song. And then all of a sudden you do it live, and it's one of the heaviest, quote unquote, heaviest, tunes on that record. That and Rock Bottom, holy crap. that one too, and 100,000 Years. The drum solo. That was the first thing I ever learned how to play on the drums. On a little Muppet Show drum set. You heard that right. Muppet Show drum set. It had one bass drum, 2 little sticks that stuck out of it with these, little crappy cymbals, a little cowbell, and one drum on one side and one drum on the other. that was it. And I beat the hell out of that thing. And I learned how to play that solo. And granted, I actually didn't really, I mean, I kept the beat in a different way. Now, if you listen to the song, it has kind of almost a shuffly feeling to it, a little bit of a bounce. You know, rather than a standard, you know, kind of a rock beat. It's like a kind of swingy, you know. And so the drum solo stays in that. When he's doing the, you know, he's keeping that swingy feeling in it, even as he's doing rock rolls, so to speak, quote unquote, if you can really get what I'm saying. And it was just, you know, I was 5, 6, maybe when I learned how to play that. And I mean, and I was just it was at that point where I was like, okay, yeah, this is what I want to do. And so that album I still to this day listen to that album. It's so moving as a record because it really showed aggression and hunger. And, you know, you don't really hear that in a lot of albums now because everything's already being done. You know, everything's already been done, but they're trying. I will give them that. I give A for effort because you got, you know, bands like Native Howl who are doing thrash grass, you know, bluegrass and thrash put together. Have you ever heard those guys?
I have not. I have heard of the only thing the bluegrass thing that I've heard was Iron Horse that does all the like the AC/DC covers and Metallica covers and stuff like that. I've not heard the thrash grass.
Yeah, these guys are fully original.
Okay.
So it's a Native Howl. That's HOWL.
Okay, I'll have to give them a check out there.
Yeah, those guys are really cool. And then you got even some, you know, old schoolers that are trying to reinvent themselves that are, you know, coming back and doing things like Korn did that. And but in their reinvention, they're actually doing it's another step forward. It's not like they're just rehashing everything that they did in the past. They're actually doing, you know, new stuff. And I appreciate that with bands, and that's why I still listen to them. Now, one band that is also extremely influential is Fear Factory. And, you know, I've always been into those guys. I've got the only tattoo I have on my body is from them. And they, you know, their first album was extremely brutal. It was mainly industrial meets death and grindcore. That's really what their first album was like. But then
I'll have to admit that the only song that I know by them is Edge Crusher. That's the only song that I know by them.
Which is a fantastic song. I mean, it really is. But I'll send you some tunes from them and see what you think. They've gone. Fear Factory is one of those bands that goes back and like they'll redo one of their older songs, and you know where it may have not been so technical in the past. It was kind of more sporadic. Now they've kind of cleaned it up a little bit, you know. So, but those bands, I mean, it just the list goes on and on of all these bands that have come around and really, you know, influenced me. I mean, like I have beyond my, you know, rock and roll and metal influences. I've got, you know, like Fleetwood Mac and Neil Diamond and Billy Joel and Elton John and, you know, all those guys that came up around that same time. But and then even people that have been on The Voice recently. You know, I don't know if you watched The Voice, but you know, Chris Blue was on there last year, and you know, I'm really getting into Broadway, and really that's kind of where the Opry comes into that, because of where I work, being a Bad States tech. I have, I hear all these, cast members going around singing, these songs and learning more about Broadway and musicals and whatnot. And actually, The Greatest Showman, the music is amazing. I mean, just amazing. A lot of that whole stomp feel, remember Stomp back in the day?
Yeah.
Has that and kind of that steampunky kind of a thought process behind it, yet be popular, pop music. And it still was really good. And then, of course, you've got Nightwish, and which is symphonic metal, and they are absolutely beautiful. I mean, they're one of those bands that if music really moves you, you'll just burst into tears. I mean, I've had some, like Seven Dust has done that to me actually live, but that's because they were singing the song "Angel Sun," and the meaning behind that song is really, really deep. I mean, you know the one I'm talking about, right?
Yes.
Okay, that actually I dedicated that to my dad who passed last year. So, I mean, actually, I turned that song on while we were in the hospital. Right before we actually, pulled the plug on him. The music, people don't really get how deep my feelings for music goes because because people will just put in whatever they want to listen to, jam for a minute, and then it really doesn't mean that much. People like you and I who listen to these bands and get into who they are as people.
Yes.
That's a huge difference.
Well,
like when I first heard Lamb of God, I was like, and they had that DVD out that they did commentary on their own DVD. I thought that was brilliant. Just brilliant. I was like, this is awesome. And you feel like you're kind of part of it, And so I actually, back when AOL was real big, I had Instant Messenger, and I saw that his name was Chris from Lamb of God. His name was Lamb Jerk. That was his username, and I was just seeing if he was on, just curious, and there he was, and I was like, oh, sweet. So I said, you don't have to answer. I just wanted to let you know that I think that you guys are awesome, blah, 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 blah. And all this stuff. And I just sent the message, and I was just going to leave it alone. And then he messaged me right back, and he was like, thanks, man. That's awesome. And he talked to me. Him and I talked for a good 10 minutes back and forth.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I thought that was, yeah, exactly.
It's very personal.
And then, and I met Gene Hoglan from Fear Factory, Testament, Death Clock. I met him at the Fear Factory show, and that when I saw one of my. Who is the most famous person you've ever met?
That would have to be Gunnar Hansen, and that was back in 2007. So
yes.
It wasn't very. He's not a very popular person, but I mean.
He's pretty popular.
I mean, he's pretty popular. I mean, but no one knows him without the mask.
True.
So, I actually had breakfast with him. Destiny and I had breakfast with him at Flapjacks.
Oh wow!
Yeah, up the street. Yeah, I was late for work that day, but it was worth it. It was a real good guy.
Yeah, he actually was probably the nicest people out of the people that went into or did the haunted with us. Because
Sid Haig was a prick.
Oh yeah, he was, and so was Tony Todd.
Oh okay, yeah. I didn't meet him because I was already gone after that one.
And then we had Kane Hodder for a day.
Oh sweet.
Yeah, but he wasn't really supposed to be there. He was they had HorrorCon was in Knoxville, and we just happened to be doing, the Fright Nights, and so he actually came by just as a hey, hello, look at me, and shaking his hand's weird though because he's got burns all up through his hands and up his arms because he's a dead guy. And so you shake his hand, you're like, I'm only shaking half a hand, But so anyway, long as I rant and rave, those are the ones. So sorry to take so long on that.
No, I appreciate it. I've enjoyed every minute of it.
Sweet. I mean, I could sit here and talk forever about which ones are, this one, this, that, and the other one. But the thing is that where I am now, especially with the fact that I don't have a actual drum set anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I have my electronic set, but I don't even really get a chance to really play on that much anymore. And I mean, soon, because the Opry is actually going to sell me their drum set.
Oh, that's nice.
And I mean, their drum set from seasons past, which it's a Pearl Vision. It's still a really nice drum set, but I just need to get the money together to actually do it all at one time. But it'll be my first double kick, like 2 bass drums set that I've ever had, because I've always had just the singles, even though I play with a double pedal.
Right.
It's the first time I'll actually own 2 bass drums, and so that ought to be neat. And actually, I've been looking at the Pearl longboards, because I've actually developed it's not a new skill, but it's a new skill for me, is kind of like a bicycle technique. Not a side-to-side rocking motion, but more of a heel-toe, back and forth kind of a motion, which, if you do it correctly, you can get some really, really fast doubles going. And you can actually add in more patterns and stuff like that. So it's just, it's fantastic. It's great. And I just started teaching it to myself just the other day. So I was like, I couldn't believe that I actually pulled it off. I was like, oh wow, that's in time,
Right.
Because at first I was struggling with it. I was like, I can't get this. And then I kind of altered my thinking a little bit and changed up the way it moved. And I was like, here it is. Now I just need to get faster with it. So I'm not going to use that for everything, but it's a really good exercise to do as well. Like I said, it's kind of a bicycling kind of emotion, more not just heel toe, but kind of a back and forth, instead of the side to side swivel that a lot of these drummers nowadays are doing. Because they're doing the swivel, and I don't even know how because bands like Infant Annihilator and Die Art is Murder, the real extreme deathcore bands, they have these just, I couldn't even think about duplicating the speed that these idiots have. It's just like, and I mean, I say that affectionately because, I mean, they're doing something I can't do, so I'm going to call them an idiot. But anyway, it's just, I'm not even going to try. Just, I'll send you also some tunes by these different bands where you listen to it and you're just like, okay, this is just stupid. What this is, because I mean, I love breakdowns. I do. I actually really, really dig breakdowns. When they first started becoming trendy and popular, yeah, it was annoying, but if done correctly, breakdowns can shatter you straight to your soul. And it just, the sound is so killer sometimes when they have those, chun, 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 you've got like some really backwards pattern, especially in the kick drums. It's incredible. But anyway, that's pretty much, that's what I got here.
Well, I appreciate you being on the show, man, and we'll have to get together and do this again.
Oh, I'd love to. Sorry if I'm just kind of like, yeah, I don't know, I'll just talk.
No, it's wonderful, man. So that's about all the time we have for that episode. Tune in next time, and we'll do it again. Good night, and God bless.